Welcome to the Website Investor. I'm Jeff Hunt, and today we're going to talk about when it's better to buy than to build. Now, you know that I have a bias towards buying. I mean, this show is called The Website Investor. We like to buy, but there are also times when you want to build. In this session, we're going to talk about buying, not building, and the advantages of buying. But first, you should know that the obvious qualification to be able to buy is that you have capital, you have some savings, or you have access to funds in some way. And so if you have no access to funds, then you can't buy and you're stuck in the building route. If you do have access to buy, to funds that will help you to buy, then stick with it, because there's some really good reasons and situations when you would want to buy and not build. And the first one is that when you buy something, it has some size and scale that allows you to leverage your time. So any investment that you make after you buy ends up being resulting in bigger returns than an investment that you would make when you build something from scratch. So let me just give you an example. Let's say that you spend a day optimizing the pricing of a product that you're selling after you buy a website. Well, that day that you invest in optimizing pricing, when you already have a lot of customers, you already have sales, is very likely to result in a much bigger profit and gain than if you spent a day when you were building something from scratch, you had no customers, and so the actual realization of any benefit in exchange for the time that you spend is very small when you're starting with nothing than if you're starting with something significant. So there's more leverage. You're leveraging the basis of your investment. Just like when you have a house, you buy a big house and you get a mortgage for the house, and when the value of the house goes up, you're kind of leveraging the bank's money and you're taking advantage of the incremental growth from having a bigger house, right? Than if you just bought a smaller one with your own money, you're using the mortgage. So you're kind of leveraging that larger basis. So that's a reason to buy, because you can work with a larger base fundamentally. A second reason to buy is when you want faster profits, right? When you become the owner of a new website, day one of ownership, you have some net income coming in. You have the same net income that was coming in the day before you bought the site. And so your road to profits and your road to value is a lot faster than if you start something from scratch. It may be months, years before you see any appreciable revenue when you're starting from scratch. So second reason to buy is it's a lot faster. Third reason is it's easier. You may actually not have any interest at all in doing those technical tasks, the design tasks, the product development tasks, whatever those tasks might be for starting an online business from scratch. Whereas when you buy a business, a lot of those things are already done. Yeah, you may need to tweak them. Yes, you may need to learn something about them. You may need to improve some things, and what you buy might have significant flaws, but it's way ahead of starting from scratch, where you have actually absolutely nothing and you're having to do all of those things from the very get-go. So it's faster, it's a little easier and more efficient. You can focus your efforts and energies on particular needs of the business rather than on all of the needs of building it from scratch. Now, another area or reason rather, why buying can be better than building, and some people disagree with me on this one, is that I feel like it's actually less risky to buy than to build. And here's what I mean by that. When you buy a business, you're buying something that's already working. It already has a process, it has a product or service of some kind, it has traffic, it has revenue. And so all of the pieces are working, or you wouldn't buy it. And that is what you're buying. You're that working model, that income stream that comes from something that's already working. And so there's like 1,000 businesses that failed and didn't reach the point that this one reached that you're going to buy. So you've sort of eliminated a lot of the risk by focusing on something that's working. Whereas when you start from scratch, you don't really know for certain that you'll ever have your first dollar of income, that you'll ever have your first customer. I mean, chances are if you're following the right system, you will. But still, there's a lot of risk inherent in starting something from scratch. And we're not just talking about online businesses. As you know, statistically, that applies to brick and mortar businesses very much so. So there's another way to kind of think about this risk difference between buying and building, is that when you're buying a website, the risk is more about your evaluation, your analysis of the property that you're buying than anything else. So it's like, your mitigation of risk has to do with how well you evaluate the prospects of that business, and then how prepared you are to take over ownership and run the business. But when you build, there are more elements of risk involved. There's like market selection, there's the process and system you use to build that's risky as well. And then your ability to build a good thing is a risk element. And then really important when you're starting from scratch is sort of the risk of your own personal discipline and perseverance and sticking with it to make it come to fruition. So there's kind of two different kinds of risk. When you buy, of course you're risking some capital, but the risk is sort of hinging on your evaluation of the business that you're buying. And then when you build, the risk is spread over more things. It's you're getting the right market, and are you going to build the right thing with the right process, and are you committed enough to it? So I personally believe that in many cases, buying is less risky than building. So those are some of the reasons why you would want to buy and not build, and that's what I've got for you today in this session. There's another session where I talk about when are the situations where it might be better to actually build than buy, and there's some very legitimate reasons for doing that as well. Visit us at flipminds.com/today for resources and tools for your business, and I'll see you next time.